Off topic, I don't know if you saw one of the coolest things that NASCAR did. Last weekend, they brought back, they did like the Talladega Nights cars. So they had a Wonder Bread car and an Old Spice car.
That's
and
awesome.
The whole crew, the pit teams, everyone is in the Wonder Bread and the Old Spice. And when they introduced them as like Ricky Bobby and the movie names.
That's amazing.
It was fantastic.
That's awesome. When I was a kid, I was big into NASCAR because my brother sponsored Busch North team.
Oh, nice.
With his business.
Heck yeah.
Like I've been over the wall, like Dover, Nazareth, New Hampshire, and like I was just like running out, holding the catch can. I was a kid, like I was like 14 years old, and I'm in like the hot pits at like Dover. It was amazing.
Anyway, sorry to get off that.
Nick and I just went down to Tennessee, and we saw a billboard with Rusty Wallace on it because apparently he has car dealerships now.
I know who that is.
Yeah. And I was like, hey, do you know who Rusty Wallace is? She's like, no. She's like, name sounds familiar. I'm like, NASCAR driver? She's like, no. It's like, dude who made left turns for his entire career, made a lot of money doing it. Yeah. Nope, nothing. All right, so I guess we can include all of that because it's great. So this is the second Goodwerks podcast, and we are with the venerable, infamous marketplace master, the original Louisianimal, Bomber.
What's up, y'all?
So if you're part of the rucking community, you definitely know who this man is. Bomber and I, we officially met in 2019. And then since then everything was shut down, but then he went from the boot to Jack's, and then he somehow, for some magical strange power, pulled him north.
That thing will get you.
Yes, sir. So he is now north, and not too far from me, and we've been to a couple of his. I don't know. Would you call it a show or meetup? Kind of meetup.
Cruise in, coffee cruise-ins.
Yeah.
I like to call them caffeinated cruise-ins.
Okay.
So I think it says coffee cruise-in. I don't know.
Okay.
But yeah.
So we've come to a couple of those, gotten some coffee, looked at some cool cars.
For sure.
And of course, Rogaroo was there, which is an amazing Ram Charger. I had a Ram Charger for a while.
That I know, dude. Aren't they sweet?
It didn't run. I was working at a garage.
I got a lot of that in here.
Yes, sir. I never got it running, or it was running, and I was like, I also had a Cordoba at the time. I had 2 Dodges that were inoperable. I worked at a garage, and like they were parked at this garage, like a family garage, like they were super cool.
That's sweet.
And I was like, yeah, I'm gonna do a swap because I think the oil pan was leaking on one of them, so I was gonna like swap it. I was gonna do something. Just like I was 20 years old, 19 years old, didn't really have the responsibility to the drive to do it, and just like never got around to it. So
heck yeah.
I had a Ram Charger.
Sweet.
Just never charged with it.
That's right. That's awesome.
So yeah, Bomber is just a little bit north of me now, like about 45 minutes or so.
Yeah.
And I've been meaning to come check out the garage, and not just the garage, but the whole Bomber experience.
Yes.
And it does not disappoint. And I guess you're working on a bunch of stuff that's really rad. But we wanted to kind of talk about like the garage, talk about the bash,
for sure.
See what you're up to. So we kind of talked about caffeinated cars and what did you call it?
Caffeinated cruise-in.
Caffeinated cruise-in. So tell me about like what you've been doing with like the car stuff and like the car. I don't want to say scene. It sounds so fucking lame, but what you've been doing with like your cruise-ins and like you recently had a bash too, right?
Yes.
So tell me about that.
So back in Louisiana, in the old boot, I had a powder coating business, and I'd always been around, cars, mostly drag racing scene. So I decided, I'm like, man, we're going to do a car show to help promote the bash. So I don't know if many of y'all know what powder coating is. It's a baked on coating. It's 400 degrees. You have to sandblast, wipe down the treatment, cook it for 20 minutes. Well, man, in Louisiana during the summer, cooking stuff at 400 degrees in this huge oven that's the size of a truck, it's not fun. So
is that where Juvenile got 400 degrees from?
probably, yes.
Is that
yes.
what is it?
Yes.
Okay, got it.
So man, got into being a barber for a couple of years, and then ended up going back to the oil field because it was back where, the money was good and that, but kept doing the bash. So when I moved to Jack's Beach, man, had a, super sweet spot, loved it, but what I could afford on the beach was about half the size of this garage and one car parking lot. So I've got a good friend, owns Nobody Customs back home. He let me put a lot of my cars in storage, a lot of my tools, equipment, stuff like that. So got out of the scene just because I just didn't have, room for it.
Sure.
And then moved back up here, and I worked at Tri-City Brewing for about a year and a half, doing a little bit of everything, cleaning the bathrooms, washing my hands, then serving beer, all that stuff. Yeah, and helping them with their, social media, their Instagram, doing live feeds, and then help them expand on their apparel. So we started doing these first Friday night cruise-ins. So I did those for 2 years. And then there's a local coffee shop where we lived in town called Excited Goat Coffee Company, which, you've tried their coffee.
Sure have.
So I was talking to them one day, I'm like, dude, the parking lots are empty because he's in a
strip mall.
That's all medical places, or medical businesses. So we've done those for 2 seasons now, going to be doing our 3rd next year. So this year it's from like 9 to 11, come up there, all cars are welcome, hang out, grab some coffee.
You even brought a Euro over there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, we've had everything from Model Ts to cab over trucks to Corvettes, Porsches, a wide variety of cars that come up there and hang out, man. And it's been a lot of fun doing that, and it's kind of got me into the community. So this September, we decided to bring back the bash up here. Well, in Louisiana, where we did, it's our Twin City Bomber Bash. So there's Shreveport and Bossier, and it's divided by the Red River. So I thought it's cool here. Bay City's divided by a river, and the Tri-City area is Saginaw, Bay City, and Midland. So the Tri-City Bash just came kind of natural.
So you went from 2 to 3.
Yes. So we did that. So what we're going to do, we're going to bring it back in Louisiana in 2025.
Okay.
And it's going to be like an every three-year event from now on in Louisiana, just because of the logistics. But the first year is going to be where we're going to limit it. There's going to be golden tickets where we invite people that have previously come to the bash. Well, once they get their golden ticket, they can either come or they can give it to somebody else. Nice. So we're going to, cap it at around, 75 cars.
So explain to me, and like for people who don't know, so what is a bomber? Okay. And a little tail into that, how did you become known as Bomber?
Okay.
So let's go, what is a bomber? Because we need to figure out what a bomber bash is. And then...
So a lot of folks would have seen in Bossier City, Louisiana, where we had the bash, that's home of the B-52s. So they have A-10s, B-52s, and the B-52s are bombers. So a lot of people thought it was from that. Well, it was a little bit to pay homage to them, but I have a chopped 51 Chevy that we're bringing back up here in April. It's been in storage in Louisiana, and those are called bombers. These huge, chopped, lowered cars, and that's where Bomber Bash came from. So back in the days of early Facebook, when you could use whatever name you did, I was Bomber Bash on there. So folks just picked it up and started calling me Bomber. So it was just, I didn't choose the nickname, it chose me and stuck with me. And I remember when I had to go to my actual real name, there were people that they were seeing that and they're like, who is this? I don't even know who this is.
Yeah.
So it's funny, I've got a friend of mine, and he, had messaged about my address up here to mail me something, and his fiance was asking, she had no idea what my name was. So they played a game of, what do you think my real name was? So he had a lot of fun with that. So that's where
So we haven't mentioned it yet. So let's not. And then we can put in the comments, what do you think Bomber's real name is? So we can prolong this game.
Exactly.
Let's see we can make a poll or something. We can put a little
that'd be
put
awesome.
one of those little windows on Instagram or whatever. We can share a clip and we'll put What's
sure.
Bomber's real name?
I would love that.
Should we put wrong guesses only? Should we just
That would be fantastic.
wrong guesses only?
I think wrong guesses would be absolutely amazing. That would be pretty
All right,
cool.
so that's going to be the thing then. So we'll get a story up and say, what's Bomber's real name? Wrong,
I like
wrong
that.
answers only.
That's super fancy.
Wrong answers only. So you're definitely not doing the bash and the boot on election year.
No, no.
So and then what can people expect? Like if they go to the Bomber Bash, like what can people expect?
So it is pre-'69, and it's traditional, hot rods, street rods, customs. And this is an popular thing. I'm not a huge fan of rat rods.
Okay.
We have some vehicles with patina, but some of the rat rod stuff just got kind of out of control. So the show is open. We have different cars and different genres, but there's some that I will explain to you, like, hey, you don't meet the criteria of the show. So if they have like a fenderless 30s or 40s body on like a S10 frame that shows that it has independent front suspension, not gonna be eligible for that. So
with that, like the rat rods, like I think I don't know a ton about them, but it would seem that a lot of people just kind of get like a piece of shit classic car and they kind of want to broadcast it as a rat rod.
Yes.
Like it's kind of like they want to say that it's a rat rod, but it's just like it's like there's no finesse or like real care given to it. Like it's just kind of like, oh, it's a rat rod, but it's just like a turd.
For sure.
Is that kind of like?
Well, yes, and it's with people adding stuff like, the air cleaner for the carburetor, having that as like a mailbox that's all beat up and nasty, or hanging barbed wire that has no purpose on the rearview mirror, stuff like that. It's gotten to where it's kind of out of control. So
it's like kitschy and
yes,
and just kind of like
yes. And I don't mind cars in primer. I don't mind cars with like real patina, and the patina thing's kind of got crazy because people are doing like the fake patina on cars a lot now, and I mean you can tell pretty quickly it just doesn't look right. But like I love fancy custom paint. I like flake. So Alice, my ~51 Chevy, has metal flake on the roof, but the rest is still in primer. So I'm cool with folks getting their car, or what my feelings are is have it where you can drive it down the road. It's mechanically sound, is drivable, and then you save the paint, interior, everything to do later once you do that. So you can drive it and enjoy it while you're doing this other process.
Right.
I like that part of it. But for people that are purposefully making them look like a rat rod, it's just kind of something that I don't care for.
Gotcha. Okay.
And it's become such a broad term of like anything that's in primer or paint or has dents in it, it's like, oh, it's a rat rod. And mine, like my '63 over here that's got a lot of patina on it, it's like that just because like I don't have, the money to throw down for that kind of, I've got other plans with it, and, just picked up an engine for it and some other stuff. So, yeah. So it's a very traditional style car show. So in Louisiana, we would do a Miss Bomber, like Friday night, you would get there. There's a local independent theater called the Robinson Film Center. Okay. So they had a 19 by 30 inflatable movie screen, and we did it properly. We bought the rights to the movie. We did like American Graffiti, Christine, Grease one year. We did Herbie the Love Bug for the kids.
Maximum Overdrive?
Exactly. Yes, Maximum. Did all of these car-related shows. Yeah. And then Saturday we'd do the bash, and we ended it with Miss Bomber Bash pageant. So here the coffee place has been a great facility, but where we were at there, we did it at a Roadway Inn that had a country bar in it. So they were super cool. They would let us take it over as a rockabilly bar for a couple hours that night, and the client, their customers, they loved it. They loved seeing the girls do the pinup stuff. So here it's just been a one-day show, just to kind of get our feet wet and still, networking. And it's there, since I'd lived there for a majority of my life, except when I was, gone in the Marine Corps, I had a huge network of people, so it grew very fast. We got national magazine coverage, like, 4 or 6 page spreads. And here I don't have that network, but I have been building it.
Sure.
So I look for it to be a lot larger.
So like for the caffeine and cruising, what is like how many cars generally show up? How does that contrast, and like what are the differences between like the cruising versus the bash?
Well, Michigan is extremely surprising to me. I learned at the brewery, because we had outside seating, we'd have like a foot of snow overnight, and then everyone would want to be outside around the fire pits drinking, and I'm like, this is insane. But we would get a little bit of rain, and no one would show, like, yeah, we don't do rain, we don't get wet. And then if we had very beautiful weather, people were going up north or being outside or whatever they wanted. So it was like inclement cold, wind, snow, everyone would come to drink. So I've learned that with the cruisings, if we have really beautiful days, sometimes it'll be 5 or 6 cars. If we get where it's drizzling a little bit, overcast, either like early in April or October's our last one, we've sometimes had like 30 cars show up. So it's very variant on the weather here. And we had one day where I was actually surprised. It was raining very hard, and we had maybe 20 cars show up. So it varies. I would say a sweet spot for it is anywhere between 10 and 20 cars, somewhere in there.
Do you think that the popularity and like the culture around like classic cars, that it's growing smaller as time goes on? Like, is that like do you think that that's like a thing, or do you think do you think it's just location dependent? Like, what do you think is like really affecting that?
I think there's several.
Or if there is an effect on that.
I see shifts in that, and then I also see like with different age brackets as well. So around here, because of the GM and the Ford plants, there are a lot of guys that are, years older than me, that have muscle cars that they bought at the factory when they were, a 20-year-old working there, and then still have this low mileage, pristine factory that only, I only take it out here in the Michigan summer. And then I see a lot of like younger folks are more into the, metric cars, European cars, the, BMWs, the Subarus, the Hondas and stuff like that. And I think part of that reason is, and I know they're expensive too, but it's expensive to get in some of those older cars.
Yeah,
the
absolutely.
Prices are unreal.
Yeah.
But I see a lot of younger guys that are more into that. One of the guys that comes up, he's, probably around 30 or so. He has a couple of the, pre-68 or 69 cars. And man, he, does the rockabilly thing.
Awesome.
The jeans, the tucked in shirt.
Jacket, slicked hair.
Slicks his hair back and all that stuff or whatever. I want to do that, but when I slick my hair back, that forehead gets even bigger than it's supposed to. But it's cool seeing a younger guy that's into that, and then we even have younger guys that come up with those. So it kind of ebbs and flows.
Sure.
And I think where we are in this area, it's more of a muscle car. Muscle car strong than it is in other places. But, and man, I like a variation of cars. I'm not a fan of mini trucks. But man, when a mini truck pops the bed off and it spins around in a circle and then pops back exactly where it goes without knocking out the rear windshield, I'm like, man, that's pretty freaking cool.
Yeah.
Not that I'll ever have one of those, but I respect the amount of work and what they do to put in to get this thing in the mount, like the hydraulics, batteries, pumps, all of the stuff they do. It's a lot of work into them. So I'm appreciative of different things. And, man, I like all vehicles, but I try to keep the cruise-ins are for everyone open. We even have a lot of Jeeps that come up there. And then the bash is more specific to what my tastes are and what I like. Yeah. We're, I think, October 4th, maybe. I can't remember. We do an ugly truck show. And to me, like, there's no ugly trucks or whatever, but we'll bring, like, Lindsay's 68 C10.
beautiful truck.
It's a
beautiful
really,
truck.
really clean.
Yeah, it's nice.
Yeah, and that's one thing up here. I know a lot of people are shocked because they'll get under it, and I'm like, it's from the South. It was kept in a carport its whole life and everything, but we, are kind of branching out with what we're doing as far as the car shows and the cruise ins.
So we talked about the Bash, and we talked about bombers and bomber, and now we're looking at like, you're a Marine.
Yes.
You powder coated. You worked on oil rigs.
Well, natural gas.
No,
I was
okay.
called a pumper. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you worked in the fields.
I got all my fingers. That's how you can tell I didn't work on the rigs.
Got it. Well, so far he has them so far, and then you've done media and community operations for companies. You've done you've worked at a brewing company. So essentially, you're a Renaissance man.
Yes.
Of sorts.
Not good at any of it. Just semi-okay at that stuff.
Same.
That's right.
Same. So now we're sitting in the garage.
Yes.
So tell me about, and obviously there's going to be some correlation because we're talking about cars and we bring cars into garages to get fixed and to sit and whatever. So explain, talk about a little bit about Bomber's Garage and what kind of where the garage, kind of the foundation of it. Is this an intrinsic thing that you've always been interested in? Did you find, because it's not just cars. You have this really amazing collection of old school tools, bandsaws, drill presses, sanders, grinding benches, electric tools, and all sorts of different tools, and you love your hammer wrenches.
For sure.
So kind of elaborate on the garage and the tools and.
So I've always, I was at my age, I was lucky to where there was the old school local garages that did kind of everything, and the old school hardware, hardware stores, where you went in there and it's wood floors. They had everything that you needed in there, all the items that you could need, and the guys were extremely knowledgeable. The auto parts store where you come in there and they're looking through the books, and half the times the guys would know exactly what you're looking for. So I've always liked that style garage. So I'm by no means a mechanic. I do most of the work on my vehicles, with water pump, brakes, U-joints, stuff like that. But I'm, not that good at, why is this engine not running? Let me, and a blessing is YouTube of searching stuff and figuring that out. So when I got up here, one of the plans that I want to do is, making artwork and lamps out of machinery. So I've got I've got probably 4 or 5 vintage outboard motors. So take off the casing, shorten it, put it there, make that into a lamp where the casing is the lamp. Use the engine parts for other stuff. And I kind of hate it because a lot of people go, oh, that's like steampunk stuff. And I'm like, no, it's a little bit different than that. So one thing I found, and I've done this a little bit before, but there were so many people that work for GM in this area. I know south of where you are to Detroit is almost, it's Ford heavy there, so many Ford plants. But out here in this area, it's a lot of GM plants.
And also Factory 1 is in Flint, Buick, GM. So that's a lot of that
for sure
influence. Yep.
So what I found is there's a ton of these guys, and I know it's definitely not the same now, but when they were upgrading equipment, and there were all these other companies that provided specific parts for all of these.
Yeah.
So there's a ton of this stuff that when they upgraded, I've heard from some of these guys, they're about to chunk this in the trash, and these guys are throwing it in the bed of their pickup truck. So I've picked up some industrial grinders. I've got that band filer over there, which is a fairly rare piece. And so I've been picking these parts up that these guys have got, and a lot of them, unfortunately, they're passing away, and the family doesn't want it. And so I've been picking it up, refurbishing it, and same with a lot of the tool storage items and stuff like that, and just cleaning them up, making them serviceable. And my buddy Scratch back in Texas is a pinstriper, and we have talked before about, when something, he's like, man, if it looks cool and it's serviceable, don't paint it. But he goes, if it needs paint, paint it.
Sure.
Well, I'm like, that's not really an answer to figure that out. But you can tell looking at something like, okay, that definitely needs paint versus this doesn't. So I kind of fell into that. So it's not a garage as far as like I'm working on cars. I work on my personal stuff. I don't work on cars for anyone. I'm not building stuff for other people. But I have fell into being able to get this equipment, refurbishing it, make it nice, and then selling it. So a couple of things, and I can show you later, is like these Craftsman drill presses. They're all metal. They're beautiful. The trim on them is chrome, or well, some of it's aluminum. They're just super nice, and they look, not to knock generic stuff. I have a ton of Milwaukee stuff that I love, which are just beasts of machinery. But this other stuff just has so much style and character to it.
Yeah, it's from an era when things were built to last, and that had parts that could be replaced, that could have that they were serviceable and maintainable. Like I have a Singer sewing machine in my shop.
Yes.
I don't think that you saw. I don't think I had it when you came down. But that machine was built in 1944.
Yeah.
And that thing hums along, man. I put a new motor on it.
For sure.
But so it has like an external, has a servo motor on it. But it's all made to be serviceable.
Oh yeah.
They're not, it's not. Is it planned obsolescence?
Exactly.
It's not. They were, they come from an era when things were built to last, and so that way you didn't have to, buy them new. And like, it broke. I got to go buy a new one. It's like, oh, it broke. What's wrong with it? Oh, it's this part. We replace that part. So looking at the machines is like, it's really cool. And and what you're saying about it being like cool and being like having like character, there's definitely something about a product, a tool, a something that's built with intent to last.
For sure.
And with like precision machining.
Yes.
And like these are machines that are built with precision machining that was forever, not 60 years ago.
Oh yeah.
And they're built like so well. So like the allure is like if you take care of it, it'll never die. Even
the design on them, I can show you on one of the outboard motors and on that do-all. Even the handles, how they are grooved and just the handle itself is a work of art. It looks nothing like the little plasticky knobs that we have now, and just how they're put together are really nice, and they're pleasing to look at. And a lot of the stuff I know, like that huge industrial grinder I have is like 3-phase. You can get a phase converter. That's what I did with my milling machine, but to run it on 220 volts. But a lot of that stuff now for way less, the technology has got to where you can run that thing on 220 and it would do kind of the same functions as a 3-phase machine. And so that's another thing where I'm picking some of this up, and a lot of guys like their garage to have these old tools in them. And again, like you were talking about the serviceability, you can get the bearings, there's a few things you have to figure out, fabricate, and make. But a lot of these, like the Craftsman drill presses, one of them that I have, it has a newer style motor on it. Now I've got this really cool homemade Montgomery Ward's belt sander. It's a table mount one with a pulley on it. And I was looking at the motor the guy put on it, and it runs, it works great, or whatever. It's a washing machine motor. So this guy built the stand for it. He used dowel rods on the stand, cut a notch in it for the pulley, and put a washing machine motor in there. Now, not a lot of people are gonna want this thing in their shop, but I'm like, even if they throw it in their man cave, it would look cool sitting in the corner because it's so very different than what you get now for belts. I mean, I've got the Delta over here that's super nice, and I love it.
Sure.
But there's a place, for that older stuff.
That makes me think. So, one of my favorite movie series or movie franchises is they're absolutely awful. I love the Fast and Furious movies.
I do. Yeah. My mom. We've talked about this because you said you'd watch them with my mom. My mom is a huge fan.
I love them, and like they're obviously over the years they've gotten so absolutely ridiculous.
Oh yeah.
That it's like okay, like there's obviously like there's no intention of this to be realistic. Like you have you have to suspend disbelief for a little bit and just let it be what it is. Like obviously they're not jumping cars between suspended highways and like catching people and like whatever.
Exactly.
But in one of the more recent ones, I think it's 7. I can't remember which. I think it's 7, but it starts in Cuba. Mm-hmm. And so, if you know anything about Cuba, there's tons of classic cars in Cuba because of like import embargoes and
50s cars.
Yeah. So there, the opening scene is like this dad and son or this uncle and nephew or something. They're looking at this car and they're like, oh, like these are parts from a boat motor.
Yeah.
And and it's so like saying that the washing machine motor was added to.
For sure.
So it's like there's a lot to be said about that ingenuity, and I think a lot of people are becoming. This is so like such a sweeping generality, but I think a lot of people are becoming lazy and they want easier things. Like they want to have like, hey, like I can just go to Home Depot and I can pick up a new drill or I can pick up whatever. It's easier than sourcing a part for something, fixing it myself, making sure it works myself. So I think that having like a piece of equipment that has something like on that, like there's something like really special about that. It's just when you make something yourself for yourself, when you are like building tools for yourself. Yeah. Building tools for yourself is like one of the coolest things, and like figuring out a way to improve your processes or your life and like building your own tools is like such a cool thing.
It's actually on those blocks of wood over there, but there's a rounding hammer that I got, and the guy puts dead skull, marks the little X'd out eyes, dead skull on those. And he hand forges these, and the rounding hammer, I use it a lot to straighten out some sheet metal. Mm-hmm. It works very well for me. I've used some body hammers and stuff, but it's got the weight to it and everything. But man, I paid a lot for it. But to me, the value was there that it's handcrafted and how he didn't just the weight of it, and that this guy actually, he made this. Yeah. And it's like my little hammer rack behind you. I would say maybe every one of those, except I see maybe one is two are vintage hammers. Mm-hmm. So I see 2 newer ones, but man, those vintage ones are I've picked them up cheap at yard sales and estate sales and stuff like that, but how they're made versus new stuff is totally different. And I do appreciate, it's like you with your business of you hand making these versus them being mass produced at a factory. At a factory or whatever, because they've got a little bit of you in every one of those that you make, the same with that hammer that guy forged. So I'm very appreciative of that. And it's just so down the road from us is a hardware store. And
a hardware store?
It's kind of a hardware store.
So
have you been there?
What is it? What's it called?
Bolts. Well, it's not Bolts and Beer. That's what their sign says.
Okay.
So you go in there, it's like hardware, they have alcohol, beer. They have everything from like submersible pumps, a bolt section, farming equipment, a few things of lumber, all of the stuff that they have.
So it's like kind of like an old school hardware store.
Yes.
Okay. So you go in and they have the aisles that are fucking floor to ceiling with everything you could possibly need. Yes. And you have to have like orienteering skills to figure out where stuff is, or talk to the person who's been working there for 30 years and.
Yes.
Got it. Okay.
But they have annexed on the largest Milwaukee store I've ever been in. I mean, the Milwaukee store is unreal. And so, man, this is another thing with the old versus new. So when I had the powder coating shop, I had a huge air compressor that would run my, the sandblasting rig and all that. So I had the impacts and this and that and everything and dragging these hoses around. And I had, every day I'd have to go through, drain my hoses. I had a really elaborate hose and filter system that would take, had the water catches in them, would drain those, bleed it all down.
And you gotta lubricate all your tools.
All of this. I had a rack for all the air tools. And then for other tools, extension cords all over. Well, man, and I've had, cordless, like a Makita when they first came out with that 9.6, it was pretty, pretty tough. So I've been around those, but now it's gotten out to where they're amazing. So I've got an Impact over there, and it's a really nice one, and it will do everything that my Air Impact would without. So I've kind of gotten away from having any cords, and they're all new stuff, but man, I'm not having to pull out an extension cord, air hose, all the maintenance that comes along with the air compressor, draining the tank,
running the air compressor,
keeping it
the
covered.
Sound.
Exactly.
Tripping over stuff, like
all of that.
When I was working in the garage, we use the old school Ingersoll Rands. And it was a garage, like it was a mechanic garage. It was set up for, I was a grease monkey doing oil and tires.
For sure.
And it was, click, 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 click. Get it out, kind of like it's just like, it's trying to like, if you haven't used them before, if you think of if you've ever washed your car. You're trying to move the hose around the car to spray your car down, and it's getting stuck under the tires, and
sure.
And you're managing all this stuff. And I don't have the super heavy duty Impact. Like I'm a yellow boy. I have DeWalt tools.
DeWalt tools. I got buddies that are DeWalt tools.
And I love Milwaukee tools. For sure. If the cost weren't so much, I would probably switch over. But it's kind of like camera systems. It's like once you buy into it, it's like you're stuck, and unless you want to make that investment to change over. So I have like the smaller, like a 3/8 drive Impact. It's not like the super like heavy. It's not like a full, like they have different levels of impacts, and mine's like the step down from like the full, like the big boy. But man, like working on my car has been amazing. And they're, you can look at these air systems and like, the air systems are cool. And there's nothing better than the sound. Like air tools are the coolest fucking thing, man.
They are.
Like having like the high pitch, like if you get a grinder or if you get an air ratchet, they're so cool. Like they have that. There's that like tactile, audible. Like it's like a whole. It's like an experience. It's like the feel of them and like the vibration of them and how they operate. And like the when you can hear them like. Gassing off. It's
the cycle
like,
of
it's like a whole thing. But these modern like portable like electric tools are just incredible.
I have a pancake compressor with my nail guns, and again, that sound is so cool. And I know they make the electric ones, but I'm like, hey, I've got these. I'm invested in these guns. This is going to be it till they're
same
till
thing.
They're done.
And I've got that too.
And even like I've used a buddy's. Grinder with a cutting wheel. And I was like, oh, with this one, man, just how long it lasted being cordless, I was amazed. Don't have one of those yet, but the Impact, I needed it for a job on my daily driver, my heavy hauler. And man, I've got cheater pipe, I'm pushing off the tire, I'm under it, I'm doing everything I can, and I'm like, I got to get an Impact. It was taking the straps off the gas tank to change the fuel pump. That's why I didn't break off the torch to get under there, But
why didn't you want to heat those
exactly. So I get over there with that Impact, and man, it's Lindsay was like, I think I was like close to $500 for this one, and I get in there and I'm like, pop, 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 and she's like, get out of here. So she's starting to get like, these are cool
like,
to use.
Wow, there is value.
For sure.
Like this is why it costs what it costs.
That's right. And since then, I've used it a ton, and it's made, before, I don't have an air compressor here. I did back in Louisiana, but I've like used the 4-way and like, fighting that, and now just like, so change the drums out on the heavy hauler and all that stuff, and just the time in taking the brakes off to change the pads and everything on the disc, or no, I said drums, but to take the whole disc, the rotor off and everything, like it cut the time tremendously instead of trying to do that by hand without air.
Absolutely.
So.
And that's similar like to my shop where, I've automated a few different things and, spent the money on the tool, like cutting webbing.
Yeah.
Like, for my ripcords, the ruck straps that I make, dude, I used to hand cut those.
Yeah.
And that takes a lot of time. And it's just using a hot knife, letting the knife heat up, pull it out to, and I had a system and it was quick. I wasn't like measuring, marking, cutting.
Exactly.
Was, I had a board and it was marked here and marked there. So I just pull it, cut it, next one. And it's like, okay, like, yeah, it's more efficient than like having to measure and, do all that. But then it's like I got an automated narrow goods cutter, and it's just like, I spend $600, $700 on it.
Oh, for sure.
But then it's like, it's just like, and I can walk away from it if I need to. I mean, I monitor it, because, it'll flame up if it's too hot, like, if it's not moving fast enough. But the automation, like the time that it saves,
yes.
I think people look at things and go, wow, that's really expensive for just a tool with something I could do with my hands.
For sure.
Talking about like a cheater pipe, I replaced the, I've done a couple of suspension jobs on my current car and my last car, I replaced the springs on it myself. Like I lowered both of them and did all that work myself. And it's like, I had my breaker bar and I had a 6-foot steel pipe on that thing.
Yes.
And the torque on those, the torque spec is 120 foot-pounds.
Yeah.
And so when you're trying to take those off after they've been on for years and 80,000 miles, it's like, those are hard to break.
Oh, for sure.
So I have this like 6-foot metal pipe on my breaker bar, just trying to like, and I know my breaker bar is like flexing inside this pipe.
Oh yeah.
But then you have an impact, and you rip it, you pop it a couple times, and the next thing you know, it's like it's loose. So it's like, you're not paying just for the technology. You're not paying just for the tool. You're paying for the time that you don't have to invest in it anymore.
Exactly.
And like, I don't think people like quite catch on to that.
And that's where I've been with buying, like when you do buy tools, buy the best that you can afford. Mm-hmm. And the better
Sometimes.
quality. Yes.
Like there's certain tools, like you can go to Harbor Freight for stuff and get like the inexpensive carts or, stuff that like do you need to go, and buy a Snap-on tool chest?
Who can?
Well, true. That's true. You have to take out another mortgage for that.
For sure.
But it's like, can you get by with, a Husky tool chest or a General or US General or
it's wild how their stuff has improved too. And man, I'm all about like, oh, buy American, buy this, buy that, but that's got progressively hard to do. My torque wrench that I have is a Harbor Freight special. And man, I check the reviews, cause some stuff you'll see the reviews and they're like, all right, not this. But that had amazing reviews. Mm-hmm. And, man, I know they do a lot of the, it's similar to this one, but that thing is fantastic. And it was probably a quarter of the price of what I'd paid for another, for a 1/2 inch that's like a Snap-on or whatever. But it's been extremely serviceable. Same thing, I've always been a huge fan of Warren winches. On my gooseneck, I went to Harbor Freight and got one of those, and it's been a fantastic winch for a quarter of the price.
That's amazing.
But yeah, I have become a bit of a Milwaukee fanboy. I'm not gonna lie. It's been, I've enjoyed that.
I'm on board. I'm on board for that. So you're a Milwaukee boy.
Yes.
So you also have an affinity for hammer wrenches.
I love hammer wrenches.
So talk about first of all, what is a hammer wrench? And why do you love them?
So a hammer wrench is a crescent wrench, which, a lot of people frown on them. They're, it's an adjustable wrench or whatever. You can get stuff that's more specific to wrenching. Like if it's a 9/16, you can grab a 9/16. You got the gear wrenches and they fit specific to those, or sockets or everything. So in the oil field, I had a brass snap, a double brass snap, hooked onto my 10-inch hammer wrench, and went on my belt loop. And you would use this thing for almost everything out there. And it keeps you from going and grabbing this tool, that tool, that tool, whatever. So that, and you can see my oil-filled pipe wrench collection down there. But the hammer wrenches, I fell in love with it. I would hammer with them, beat stuff, knock stuff. So in natural gas, not only does natural gas come up, but you also got oil, salt water, and paraffin wax, and you can also get sand depending on the formation. So there's a lot of stuff you would be hammering to knock that stuff loose and get it out of there. So not the hammer wrenches of today, like not to knock crescent or any of those, but they don't have the same tolerances as these old hammer wrenches.
So you're actually...
I'm a hammer wrench connoisseur.
I can tell. So with a hammer wrench, like you're actually using it to hammer items. Like you can use it to adjust bolts, nuts.
Yes.
You're also using it to smack as an implement to smack things.
Yes.
Because it's generally kind of frowned upon to not use a tool what it's intended for.
Exactly.
So if you go pick up a crescent wrench from Home Depot or Harbor Freight, you don't want to smack things with said wrench.
For sure.
So standard crescent wrench has a straight handle, and hammer wrench is kind of curved, right?
No, those are railroad wrenches.
Oh,
so the curved ones, they're all hammer wrenches. It's like a generic name.
Oh, okay.
So the ones that are curved up there were actually used at the railroad, that they fit in a certain area to...
Got it, okay.
To tighten and or loosen or adjust.
So when you say hammer wrench, it's interchangeable with crescent wrench?
Yes.
Gotcha, okay.
Yes.
Got it.
It's any of them can be used as a hammer.
Okay, so it's kind of like how you call all soda or pop Coke.
Coke, everything, yes. Do you want a Coke? Yes.
What kind of Coke?
Exactly,
okay.
Same thing.
Got it, okay.
Same thing, so.
Tell me about this. This looks like it would be an amazing animated character that would come alive and have a thing. This is kind of like Wall-E, but
So there's a brand called Sun that makes these. It has a beautiful logo on them. So this is like an old school engine analyzer, and I've been wanting one forever just to display. So, man, they go quick and they're getting more and more expensive because a lot of people are grabbing them and sticking them in their, I hate the word man cave because I just want to get off this. Man cave to me is for guys that don't know how to use tools.
So to go back, so this is an engine analyzer.
Yes.
So what? So I see what it does, but what does it do? Tell people what it does.
I remember bringing it home and I'm showing it to Lindsay, and she's like, "This thing looks cool." She loved the logo on it. I've been cleaning on it, and she's, "I don't get what it does." So I go, my little tiny code reader that's digital that I can plug in our vehicles and it tells you what's wrong with it? She goes, yes. It's like this big. I think the one I have was like 300. It's a nicer one. Yeah, scan tool. I go, this is it. This is
an
back
old
in the day.
Scan tool.
Yes. So this has timing lights, meters.
Is that an oscilloscope?
Yes. So I've been cleaning it up. Some of that is very old technology.
Yeah.
So I want to take the back, vacuum all the dust, whatever, and see if it's functional.
So
if it's not
full of tubes and stuff?
Yes.
Awesome.
So if it's not functional, I just want it where I can light all of this stuff up. Yeah, and have it as a display.
Yeah.
So I'm going through this thing last night and I'm doing a YouTube video of what's on the inside of this. So
we'll link I'll link below, so that way people can get a little more in-depth look at.
So
this.
I was shocked I'm pulling stuff out of there, and in the back of it is a Kmart bag, and of course it's like there's mouse droppings, mouse nest, all the stuff, and I open up this Kmart bag, and there is a vintage Levi's denim vest that's lined in sheepskin shoved in there, that I think with cleaning would be very serviceable. I'm like,
if you talk to anybody on Hoarders, they're gonna say no because there's mouse piss and shit on it.
I can clean it. I feel good about it. And I've been in so much, old cars, bikes too.
Yeah.
And my Ford flathead engine, when I brought it home, it had a whole mouse canal in there.
Yeah.
So anyway, and I'm very, I wash my hands after that. So I was shocked at that and thought that was cool. But then I found something that was really freaking cool. So it is a separate control that you take a box that plugs into this, and there's a couple that's like another device that you plug into here, then read that device, then attach it to the car, like some for checking the water temperature and all this other stuff. And this is to test your the seat belts that have the electric.
Oh, the automatic?
The automatic seat belts and all. So this very first generation of this, that's from the 70s. And so I'm like, oh my God, I didn't even know they had a tester for this. I was learning. And I look on there and it says, the plate says Chrysler Space Division. And I'm like, what? So I stopped the video, I'm Googling, and unbeknownst to me, I'm embarrassed as Louisiana. In the 70s, and I think it ended in the 90s, Chrysler had a space division, a rocket, they built rockets in New Orleans, Louisiana.
What?
And then NASA now owns it, they bought out Chrysler, but Chrysler built all of these rockets in the 70s.
No kidding.
And had all this technology, and the head part of the space division was in Detroit. So I mean, there's a couple of wheels. Stoney is a big car guy.
Yeah.
I messaged him, a couple, everyone was like, oh my God, we've never heard of this. So
Were they?
I was yesterday years old when I learned that Chrysler had a space division.
They weren't responsible for the Challenger, were they?
Okay, here's another story that I was reading.
Oh boy.
Which, I'm a Mopar guy. I mean, I love Chevys, I love everything, but they were either tasks or were going to design a space shuttle, but they went with the other space shuttle design. And in my heart, I know that a Hellcat powered space shuttle or a Hemi powered space shuttle would never have any problems. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
So
Because Hemis have never had problems ever.
okay, we're talking about space shuttle Hemis.
And can we also talk about the fact that Hemi is nothing but an absolute marketing ploy?
Oh yeah,
and
exactly.
It's if you know, I don't know a ton about engines, but if you know a little bit, Hemi is short for hemispherical injection, which is the injection ports in the cylinder heads used to be angular, and they discovered that if you had a hemispherical injection port, you'd get a better, more efficient burn of the fuel.
Hemi.
So Chrysler Dodge came up with that, but now everything's a Hemi.
Yeah,
at least
they got the minivan Hemi.
Yeah,
Well, the Hellcat minivan they made for a little bit.
There's a Ford Hemi, there's a Chevy Hemi. They're all, it's all that, and so it's just it's part of an ongoing, Chrysler Dodge came up with that forever ago, but it's now everyone else is caught up, and it's
for sure
the same. It's the same thing.
So, one thing I like about stuff like this is and I'm keeping. This isn't one that I'm gonna sell, but that is something that I learned, and I'll show you later on the band folder. There's a lot of this stuff that I'm learning, and I had no idea Chrysler had a space division, and especially in freaking New Orleans. I was like, how did I not know this? But I associate New Orleans with the Higgins boats were built there, and the World War II Museum is where, that area. So there's a lot of stuff that I'm learning about in this area that I don't think any place else I would have got access or got knowledge to that. So this one went to a dealership, I guess in the 70s, and then an individual bought it. He passed away, and it's another deal. His best friend was selling some stuff. I picked up a few other things there for the widow because none of the kids are interested in this. And I thought it was an odd find to have that Levi's vest that's sheep.
Have you had any unexplainable experiences since you've tampered with the Levi's vest?
No. Hey, I'll tell you this, I put it right back in that Kmart bag and it's stuck back up in there,
Well, I mean, not only is that person probably dead, but Kmart is too.
Oh yeah. And this thing hasn't lit up on its own unplugged in, so that's a bonus.
That's kind of sad.
I know.
I think if it did, you'd be like, oh.
I'm like, look here, Christine of Engine Analyzers, you're gonna roll on up out of here.
Does it have a name?
Not yet.
If you name it
Christine,
I bet you it'll illume. That'll light up right away.
Exactly.
So explain to me. So, with the garage and stuff, and you repurpose and refurbish stuff. So what's your marketplace game? How do you go about finding stuff? We kind of talked about what you decided on. I mean, obviously without I forget his name. Sorry, but your pinstriper, your buddy.
Scratch about when to paint it or when to not.
Yeah. So how do you we kind of determine like whether or not you decide that you want to put paint on something or not. So like, what's kind of your process? Like, what do you look for, and then like then what happens after you pick up something?
Of course, price point is a huge deal, and then if it's actually serviceable or not. So that industrial grinder over there, it's going to be something pretty. The guy I bought it from, he bought it at auction, and it was, plugged in and working. He showed me the video, and he goes, I did not know it was this big or this heavy, and this is definitely not what I needed.
Sure.
But he's like, I'm selling it for the price I paid. It was a fantastic price, and it's going to be a good flip. But it's something I could set on for a year or so.
Sure.
So the first...
If you did look at it, like if you didn't see it in person,
yes,
it looks like a standard, like a tabletop grinder. I mean, like it could, if you just had a picture of it, you could think that it was just like a standard grinder that's 18 inches across.
When I got there, I was like, holy hell, this is big. Because I've got 2 pretty much industrial grinders in here already that are small. I mean, you see it's freaking huge.
This grinder it stands like on its platform, on its base, stands like 4 feet high.
Yeah.
It's a good 3 feet wide. The wheels, they've got 10 or 12 inch wheels on it. Like
and I got extra wheels with it and everything. Yeah, it's a big one. Yeah. So, and a lot, if someone, I have to kind of be smart with like, is someone going to buy this? Right.
The
same with that the washing machine engine power or motor powered belt sander. That I'll probably sell them for a while, but I was like, the price was dirt cheap and it looked really cool. So some of the stuff like the Craftsman ones, I've seen some of those that have been painted up and fixed up nice and polished and stuff, and it ends up being a good. Those, when they're painted and made nice, they look fantastic.
So how much of it is functionality and usability versus aesthetic? Like I'm sure like a lot of people just like want to like have like a nice space for themselves, a man cave or a garage, and like they want it to add like for instance, I have an old hand plane in like my office.
Yes.
Hand planes, like some hand planes are just beautiful. Like
they are
incredible, and like people like. They'll get them and they'll make like the nice handles out of like curly birch, and like they become like these beautiful like pieces of art more or less than a tool.
Yes.
So how much of it is based on aesthetic or decoration versus like usability?
I think it depends on what it is. Mm-hmm. The like my milling machine is a Rockwell. I don't think that. I just picked up a Rockwell drill press, and I'm like, oh, this matches my Rockwell. So I'm going to replace the current drill press that I have, and it's not that attractive or good looking of a unit. Mm-hmm. But I'm like, okay, I like that it's a Rockwell. I like that it meets my needs better than the other one does.
Sure.
So some stuff I think it's a divide of like where those particular years of those Craftsman drill presses look really cool, mm-hmm. and they're very serviceable and can be used. So those I get them because I'm like, hey, I can paint those, make them look nice and make them look cool. Sure. So it's more of a display to like look at and functional. And then some of the stuff is just pure function. Like some of the industrial cabinets and storage that I've picked up, mm-hmm. I'll usually, and not to like, Super Clean, I think we talked about that. I've been a huge fan. That stuff works fantastic. But Super Clean works so well, I couldn't use it on a lot of this because it'll take that.
It'll pull
the lettering off of it. Yeah. But as far as like down here, there's a lot of this the grease and stuff that permeates that stuff.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a hard, like the band filer. All of that Vista Green paint is cool, but it's starting to flake off everywhere mm-hmm. on it because it's set in a shop for so long that wasn't climate controlled. So that one definitely needs to be totally refurbished. And my plan was with that grinder to repaint it, but once I degreased it and got it clean, I'm like, well, there's nothing wrong with this paint. Right. It's like machine or battleship gray, machine gray, whatever you're going to call it, is over the original Vista Green. But I'm like, that doesn't affect its usefulness and it looks good. So if I spend the time that's where I kind of look at some of it too, about the time versus the reward on that.
Sure. Yeah. ROI.
So with how the Craftsman drill presses look, to me it is worth making those look really cool, like metal flake 'em or whatever. I've got my buddy locally here that does the pinstriping and painting. I'm going to get him to do, some pinstriping on some of them to,
so
help them look cool.
Along that vein, have you considered, I don't know a ton about, or really anything about like the coatings and the paint, like for all these, this old machinery. Obviously it's like done in a certain way for specific reasons, because these are machines built to service other things.
For sure.
So their coatings are gonna be hard use coatings.
Yes.
Now, powder coat can also be considered a hard use coating.
Yes.
People use them on firearms. They use them on wheels, car parts, fuel tanks for motorcycles, like all different types of stuff you can powder coat. Have you considered like rebooting that and doing like powder coating on some of the stuff that you've gotten? Or
I really do love powder coating. I think it is a great system. There are parts of powder coating that it is not as bulletproof as people, think that it is, but it is very serviceable in a lot of environments and is a fantastic application for, motorcycle frames, valve covers. The
bike
list
frames,
goes
roll
on.
cages,
Yes. But in staying true to these, so why a lot of the industrial equipment is either that Vista green or the industrial gray, like a battleship gray. Well, what I had started learning was on a lot of these after the war, there were like 55-gallon drums available of this,
I think you posted about that with the vices that you're painting.
So
vices, yeah.
I've tried to keep in those, and a lot of this machinery was brush painted. So I actually got some of the vices and stuff. I try to keep it in what they did at that time. So I will add hardener and get a chip brush, mix this up, and I'm still on a learning curve to get it smooth. And there's actually these buses I believe it's in England, that they were all brush painted. So these guys that do this brush painting, they put the hardener in and lay it down, but they have got so good with how much paint to dip, how much to do it, that they pull it smooth where it's hard to tell that it's even
that's amazing.
A brush.
Yeah.
So that's something I've been working on with that. So with the equipment, if it was originally brush painted, that's what I do with the hardener, and that's something that's kind of a learning curve on it. With the do-all obviously was sprayed, the band filer and some of the other stuff was painted, so I just kind of look at it and figure out what it needs. And a lot of that is just like my personal preference too. There's also a lot of these guys around here that had in their basements had a lot of really nice woodworking equipment, and I bought a few things and looked at a few things, but some of that stuff was so heavy and cast steel and cast iron versus now you can buy like a DeWalt.
You can get like a work site.
Super light aluminum, and these plastics are so tough. They're as tough as sheet metal and everything and all, that I'm kind of like, So the stuff that I get is more industrial use, as far as you're not getting these machines at Home Depot as much, if that makes sense.
Yep, absolutely.
So I look for, shears, metal brakes that were made like in the 40s and 50s and even earlier. And I've even found a couple of like, it's broadened my horizons and learning stuff like mechanical hacksaws that are from the 20s that are like cast steel. So it's like predates an original bandsaw. So these things have huge hacksaw blades, and some of them are like they're rotary in this blade. So you drop it on there and it's just shearing it, and they're absolutely amazing. But a lot of this equipment is like super heavy, takes up space. The same with, there's a lot of lathes that were built in the World War II area that are as serviceable, and I can't see myself ever buying a new lathe, because they don't, and again, that goes with that cool factor of some of these other ones where you can replace the bearings, you can do all this different stuff, and it's just, they're freaking cool.
That reminds me of the video that you posted about knowing how to be poor.
Yes.
Because it's like it was a somebody moving a lathe.
Yeah.
And if you know anything about lathes, they're massive.
They're huge.
And if you get like an old school lathe, I mean, they're bench size.
Oh yeah.
You know, they're 6 feet long, 2 feet, 2.5 feet deep. You know,
for sure.
3.5, 4 feet tall. Cast. You know, hundreds and hundreds of pounds.
Oh yeah.
And like they're really, again, it's back to pre-planned obsolescence.
That's right.
It's before the intentional breaking of things and needing new phones and needing new lamps and refrigerators and dishwashers and.
It's like the meme of those green refrigerators from the 70s that. I mean, I know a lot of people that still have those in their garage or whatever. And new refrigerators are I mean, the one we have has like, you open it up and there's all these LED lights and it's all this stuff or whatever. But I know in 10 years, is it still going to be around?
Probably not.
Or this, fugly old green in the almond color and all that brown.
They took all the wartime paint and they just transferred it over to the refrigerators.
Exactly.
All those 55-gallon drums of paint. Went out of the refrigerators and
for sure,
and microwaves and blenders and all that stuff.
Well, I know even with like your business, it was back in Doylean, Louisiana. There's a buddy of mine that he would do, a little bit of sewing here and there, and he ended up buying a Toyota sewing machine. Mm-hmm. And man, I had no idea that thing. Like I helped him move it. It was freaking heavy, and it's an old. You could still get parts for it and all that. And an industrial one had the Toyota logo on it and everything. And I don't know how old it was then, but he still does his hobby stuff on that huge freaking machine.
I'll tell you what. So I just got a new because of the campaign that I did, the honeycomb campaign that I did that was successful. And I got capital for Goodwerks, and I'm working on finding a workshop. But in the meantime, I've taken care of some other things that I needed to do, like consolidating some debt, I got a new computer, stuff like smaller stuff that I needed to do that was easy to do. But now I'm looking for a workshop. One thing that I did is I got a new machine. I got a new sewing machine.
Nice.
And it's like a super heavy duty monster machine. And so it's got a longer arm on it. It's got a larger workspace. I just sewed through, like just doing a test, I sewed through like 12 layers of 500 denier Cordura. Like it was a chunk of folded Cordura like that thick.
Oh
that
yeah,
just,
and it's just hammering through it.
So one thing that I've noticed about sewing machines, especially the industrial machines, like they're made very well.
Yes.
And these machines, like there are still some things out there that are still built really well. Granted, you pay for it, but with service and maintenance, like they're gonna last for fucking ever.
Oh, for sure.
So I've noticed that, like with my Singer, like I said, I have like an old Singer, and it's made of metal. Mm-hmm. And the new machines, like the new sewing machines, are still made with metal.
Yes.
John at SOE Tactical Gear, Special Operations Equipment Tactical Gear, he's been sewing for like 35 years. SOE's been going for like 30 or something like that. They make fantastic hard use gear. John's a really good dude. And like I would really love to get Goodwerks, like, that size of, similar size of company. And I just really like how he runs his business. But he has a bunch of like older machines, but it's like, they're metal.
Yeah.
They're steel, and like they're made to last. And it's like, you're still cranking out tons of volume, but it's using equipment that's meant to do that.
For sure.
It's not like a plastic. So when you mention like a Toyota machine,
oh yeah,
like I think Mitsubishi actually has machines.
Yeah.
So there's this really cool kind of like crossover, and like for like some of these companies where like a Toyota, like what? Like,
oh yeah.
Yeah, for real. And they last and last. If you take care of them, like they're these pieces of equipment that are really just meant to be taken care of and move forward, and they'll continue to serve you as long as you serve them.
For sure.
I remember my buddy's dad, one of my best friends, his dad, he told me something once, and I'll never forget it. He said, if you take care of your car will take care of you.
Yes.
And it's the
same.
same.
Preventive maintenance is a huge
absolutely
deal.
So like that, I think that's really part of it, and it's kind of, going back to what we were talking about before, the planned obsolescence, and it's just like, that I think that can still be, like, high quality stuff can still be found.
Oh, for sure.
But you're going to pay for it, but that's okay because it's going to last for a long period of time. So now we're getting into winter. It's coming. Bomber has not quite acclimated yet to Michigan winters.
I refuse to.
I don't think he ever will. That kind of this is a complete tangent, but we still haven't done our beach photo shoot.
I know we need to.
We can do that in Superior this winter if you want.
Dude, Superior.
Some silkies up on Superior. We can go to Marquette, have a nice little weekend.
So
you can hop in the lake.
Where's the place with the beautiful falls? It's like I guess a Native American name.
Are you talking about the Quamanon?
Yes.
Yeah.
So went up there camping with Lindsay and some of her family, and it was, I mean, dude, there's 2 states that I think they keep stuff on the low. Michigan and Arkansas are 2 extremely beautiful scenic states.
I wouldn't say we keep it on the low because we had the Pure Michigan campaigns that are like everywhere.
And that got it.
But,
yes.
Yeah.
But we went up there and we went into Lake Superior, and this is, I mean, to me, and okay, so around the 1st of August in Louisiana is still like deathly hot.
Yeah.
As it is in most places but it starts getting cool night. Like I've learned in freaking July, bring a freaking hoodie at night because I'll get cold up here.
Well, the temperature swings are a thing. Yeah.
So we go up there and we was like, oh, Lake Superior, I got my like rainbow flip flops on. I kick them off and got in the water. I was like, holy shit, this is cold.
Yeah.
And I've been up to like Traverse City and stuff like that. So I can't imagine how freaking cold it gets. And then, I mean, it's been a huge, Louisiana would have like a, every 10-year snowstorm. That's usually like, 1 to 2 inches.
Yeah.
Dude, but it's crazy. I think it was 2 years ago. I mean, they got like 6 to 8 inches, and it was colder there than it was here.
Yeah.
And I was like blown away, but it was just a 100-year event for them. But, yeah, man, I bought at the other place, I got a Toro snowblower. And I'll never forget I moved up here from Florida, and it was May 1st. And of course, down there, I mean, it's already hot as hell. And got up here, and man, we had drove all night. Lindsay had to run into work to do some stuff, and she calls me like at 7 in the She's like, go outside. I'm like, it's freaking, it didn't stick, but it's snowing. And I'm like, what the hell have I done? So got a snowblower and stuff like that. But in probably that fall, man, I woke up one night and I jumped up, grabbed a little something. I'm like, man, we're about to get, I thought the killdozer was coming at us. She's like, what are you doing? I'm like, what is that? And I'm yanking open the window, and it's them snow plowing the streets. And I've never heard that noise in my life, and I didn't know what it was.
Yeah. True to form. As we got talking, and I forgot to put my timer on. This camera only records 30-minute clips. We got to talking and didn't really realize that we exceeded our time limit. So
it happens when you're having fun.
It happens when you're having fun. So Bomber, when he came down to the Goodwerks shop, one of only like 2 people that have actually been there. We recorded, and his audio didn't record.
Yeah.
So that's kind of,
we did 20 minutes of garble, but it sounded like,
And he had a list of all the questions and stuff, so it was kind of easy to recover from, and we had a really great time the second time around.
For sure.
Because of the,
this sounds familiar.
Yeah, we were also simultaneously streaming on Instagram Live. So the people who were kind of like watching that got to see the whole thing twice.
Yeah, bonus round.
I'll link to that video in the description as well, so that you can check that out when Bomber came and saw this get made.
Heck yeah.
And
in 30 seconds.
30
seconds or less.
I think it was less than that. So,
less than 30 seconds.
Me, I'm just holding out because I really build them in 30 seconds. So we were just talking about coming up to Michigan in winter, Bomber's first white Christmas.
Yes.
We're not going to review the whole 30 minutes just to catch up. So
for sure.
What are you doing? Like, winter's coming. What's going on in the garage? Like, what are you doing over the winter?
Well, like I said, during summer when it is, dude, I've never experienced summers as nice as they are in Michigan. I get when people talk about Michigan summers, they're absolutely amazing. But there's a long time of inclement weather, and course, out here we're in farmland, so there's nothing to stop the wind. It's windy, it's cold, the snow, we get huge snow drifts against the buildings. So I'm fortunate where this garage and even our attached garage at the house has gas heat in it. So I've got insulation heat, insulated garage doors, so I can be snug as a bug out here. I mean, I'm not going to keep it like Louisiana hot. I'll still out here in a hoodie and a jacket working, but it's where I can comfortably do stuff.
Where your hands aren't numb. And
Yes,
it doesn't hurt.
yes.
It doesn't hurt to manipulate tools.
So there's some projects that I put on hold because there was so much to do outside here, you know, building the chicken coop, pond maintenance, yard, all of this stuff, that I've got the 1991 Kubota that I have. It's a 4-wheel drive. I got it with a bucket to move the snow, a front loader. I have tasks to do on it that I'm like, okay, I'm going to do that in the winter when I don't need it. And it's, you know, some drilling and tapping in cast steel. I can do that in here in the heat. I've replaced some of the bearings already on the finish mower for it. So there's stuff in here, stuff on the Harley that I want to do, and then also the work that I'm actually doing on a lot of this stuff where I can be in here in the heat, you know, cleaning, painting, degreasing, all of that stuff. So I feel very blessed that we ended up with this place with it, you know, heated, insulated, and all that. So it's kind of the same stuff. It's just moving inside and allowing me to even, you know, not be, you know, hampered by the bad weather.
Sure.
At the I mean, I love the place we lived in town, but the garage wasn't heated. I didn't have a lot of room there, so it was like moving a lot of stuff around just to do the smallest projects. So that's been fantastic out here.
Awesome. So recently I watched the Jocko, or didn't watch, I listened to the Jocko Willink podcast with Rainn Wilson. I'm a big fan of The Office. I love The Office. So I was like, you know, and I love Jocko. I you know, listen to him some kind of regularly, and you know, I go through spurts, spurts, that's it. So I had to listen to this podcast. And my other favorite movie franchise, aside from Fast and Furious, is I love the Harry Potter movies.
Yes.
I didn't read Harry Potter until I was 35. I didn't watch Harry Potter until I was like 35. So it's still like new to me. Like I didn't grow up with it. My wife Nick got me into it. She was like, "Hey, you know, can we, you know, watch a Harry Potter movie with me?" I'm like, "Oh, like fine, I'll do it." My ex used to wear like the Gryffindor sweatpants, and I would bash on her all the time. I still would because I'm Ravenclaw.
For sure.
But you know, the mockery comes from a different place.
Yes, and my daughter grew up in that age of being young, and she like is the same age as those kids and grew up watching. So that was my deal to take her and go see Harry Potter.
And that would have been me too. You know, like you know,
sure.
in that area, you know, in that range where it would have been like, you know, wouldn't have been a 35-year-old man reading children's books. So Rainn Wilson goes on this tear about how awful Harry Potter is, and it was so comical that I wasn't even affronted by it. Like it was just like this hilarious listen to him talking about how ridiculous Harry Potter is, and he goes to Jocko. He's like, you know, you could just do a podcast of unpopular opinions.
Oh yeah.
Or like hot takes, as they used to be known on the socials. So I forgot to do this with Brian because we had been up for, you know, 24 hours plus after doing a 13-hour endurance event, and you know, so my brain wasn't quite clear. So I wanted to ask him, but I forgot. But what is an unpopular opinion that you have?
Well, mine is I do not get any form of sports ball. I don't get it. I don't understand it. I don't understand how people get so passionate about like okay, I didn't mention this, but I do have a number 9 Saints jersey, and on the back it says Louisianimal. And not that I'm a Saints fan, but I thought it looked really freaking cool.
Sure.
Lindsay surprised me with it, and I will wear that, but I have to like Google to see, are the Saints playing, and know it's like baseball season or something like that. You know, I won't keep up with it or know that, but I thought it was cool to have that jersey with Louisianimal. But I see the people that do like the face painting, they're arguing, they're in the bars, they're yelling back and forth at each other. It's I don't understand that.
So what about, so like, we get inundated with like football, baseball, soccer or football is becoming more popular here, it seems.
For sure.
What about rugby?
Well, and I had buddies. There's a rugby league at Pendleton. I had buddies that played rugby, and they were like going, "Hey, man, come play rugby with us." And I've always been interested in rugby. I still don't understand anything about it. It makes zero sense to me. But I got out there and watched them play. And then, I'm an extremely handsome man, and I saw their faces
Yes,
afterwards, and I've had my nose broken a couple of times and tussles and stuff like that. Everything I'm like going, dude, screw this rugby, And I got like, Jim Herrings, Hanley, they're both big rugby guys. And then this thing that I like to do that goes into being unpopular with the rugby guys is like anytime it's on or I see rugby people, I'm like, oh, you play soccer. And it rocks. Now I'm careful of who I say it to. Of course. Because like rugby is the MMA of ball sports, and everything. Yeah, for sure. So respect to the rugby guys for sure.
Yeah. I think there was I think Tom Schumann, I saw him post something about there's like I don't know if it's annual, but there's a rugby game that they have in Australia with like, I don't know, I'm not sure like what part of the Australian military, if there's like a Marine equivalent or like if there's like a Royal Marine thing or something, I don't know what it is. But there's a game, like a rugby game that they play with the Marines. I don't know if it's annually or whatever, because it dates back to World War II when the Marines were in Australia on leave. In the Pacific Theater.
And play with those guys.
Yeah, so it's been like a continued thing of like camaraderie and brotherhood, like to kind of like that's kind of like kept going over the years, which is really kind of amazing.
And to me, rugby is a very Marine-like sport. So I went to go visit Jim years ago when he lived in Wisconsin, and we got there and it's like snow-covered ground, all that. It was a big change, but we get there. And he was helping referee rugby games. So we went, and it's these high school kids. And it had to be in like the 30s. The wind's blowing everything, and they're in their shorts, ripping jerseys, running around, all of this. And of course, you can tell I'm from the South. I've got like, I don't own a parka. I've got like a denim jacket and a hoodie and a beanie on and my hands are shoved in my pockets. And he's like, oh, isn't this great? And I'm like, I was having a hard time concentrating on the team. But but man, those kids, rugby folks, they're a different breed. So I could see getting down with the rugby. I like it and kind of hockey is the same, where there's a lot of yelling at them.
There's violence.
Which I like. There is.
There's violence, which makes it
sure
more appealing. And it's not like soccer where if a guy gets bumped, he cries to the ref and flails on the ground.
Those videos of them and then some of the NBA guys. The football guys, there's some tough cats doing that. I look at some of those smaller guys that are getting hit by these,
getting crushed by the linemen and stuff.
And you're just like, holy crap, man. Yeah. So back in Shreveport, they had a baseball team called the Shreveport Captains that was kind of played reference to Captain Henry Miller Shreve, who Shreveport's named after. They had been a baseball franchise since right after the Civil War, forever. So we get the Shreveport Mudbugs, which are the Crawfish, a hockey team down there. I think they're AA maybe, or maybe AAA, or in that genre or whatever. I went to the inaugural game, and these guys, 15 minutes in, get into like a 20-minute fight. Even the goalies met or fight. The refs dip out. I was hoarse from screaming. It was like, a WWF match going on. And I'm like, oh, it's going to do well. And it was maybe 2 or 3 years later, the baseball franchise dried up after, like a century and more. Yeah. Because of this hockey. So I can get the passion of some of that, but I guess it's the fighting.
Yeah, it's the perceived, like, the potential for violence, I think, is kind of what keeps people hanging on.
And I'm respectful of, like, the training and everything. I look at both, like, Hanley's kids, man. His son's a beast.
Yeah.
He's, I guess, a freshman now or maybe a sophomore. Kid is an absolute animal. Plays baseball, football, wrestling, does all that. The daughter is killer at rugby, and he's got them, he's always going on about, them and their training. They do lots of, CrossFit-inspired stuff and everything. Those kids are absolute animals, and I'm respectful of that.
Yeah.
But the thing I guess I have the problem with is like going out to a bar, and I'm trying to enjoy a pint, and kind of relax, and
yeah.
they're screaming at the dude in green on the
can't hear
TV.
you.
Yeah. And they're yelling back and forth at each other, and I'm like going, Jesus, man, I don't get watching it. But have gotten back into getting into NASCAR since MIS is here and going to see them live, and I'll watch that. And I know people say, oh, that's what dogs do when they go crazy. They just run around in circles.
Well, and if you watch these, and if you know anything about these teams and like the drivers and the pit crews, like these dudes they're athletes.
They are.
They're legitimate athletes. Like the pit crews have like workout schedules, routines.
Oh,
like,
for sure.
And it's not just like, it's very similar to, like football, where it's like you have plays and you have a job to do, and like you have a position, and for that job you have to be able to do X, Y, Z. And it's the same thing for these pit crews, where they have to go in, they have to have a high level of athleticism. As far as the drivers go, I mean, dude, you're in a vehicle doing 200 miles an hour with a bunch of other vehicles doing the same thing.
Inches
it's
apart.
110 degrees inside that thing. You have to, if you've ever sit in a sauna before.
Oh, for sure.
You can just sit in a sauna, sitting still, and your heart rate increases, your breathing increases, like your body is working hard to regulate its temperature. So it's like you have to figure, like, there's somebody that's operating an 800 horsepower vehicle.
Yes.
Amongst a bunch of other people who are doing the same thing, trying not to crash, trying to beat each other. So there's a lot of athleticism. And to what you were saying, like, I have a lot of respect for people who like I don't love the sport. I love the stuff that's built around the sport. Like, you watch like Remember the Titans, Varsity Blues, and like these romanticized, We Are Marshall, like these romanticized movies.
That We Are Marshall, yes.
That's Friday Night Lights. It's like
Field of Dreams. I've watched those
it's
as
not
well.
the sport. It's everything that's around the sport. It's
sure.
Everything. It's the camaraderie. It's the sacrifice. It's the dedication, the discipline, the work. It's everything that's not the game.
Yes.
That I really respect and can appreciate. But yeah, it's people, getting into fistfights because of a college team or a football team that represents their region. Like it's absolutely fucking silly.
Yeah.
It's
I don't get the sports ball and understand how extremely popular it is.
It's really, it's all, it's the same thing as people getting upset about their elected officials or their politicians. And one's better than the other.
Eagle had sent me this video, which I found very interesting. It's these group of guys that are football players, and they interview people in other sports genres. And they had interviewed like Rowdy, Kyle Busch, and then Dale Jr. And they're like, man, you guys aren't athletes. The ones guys like, I don't get it. Well, they took them out and had them go through what their pit crew does. They were jacking it up. And I mean, some of these guys are huge guys, but their hand-eye coordination, I mean, they're both skillful. But they are jacking this up so much and can't do it, and then seeing what these pit crews do. And then they took them for rides around the track, and I think they maybe hit like 150, and they were getting out going, all right, I believe. I think there was one of them that was like, let's do it again and go faster, but the other ones were like, this is insane. So yes, there is that part of it, and being good at your craft, and I get that with these, with the football players and everything, but Absolutely. I just can't, as I get as boring as NASCAR would be to some people, I do kind of get excited about that.
Sure.
But I just have a hard time watching a football or baseball
I'm
game,
the same way.
So
we're going to kind of wrap up. Where can everybody that's taking the time to listen so far or watch so far, where can they find Bomber?
I do have a Facebook page. I loathe Facebook. I know we've talked about this. I use it mainly for marketplace, but Facebook is the best for me doing the events for cruise-ins, the car show. The event part of Facebook is great, and I do a little post of sharing. I love YouTube, but I'm still figuring out what works and what doesn't work on YouTube. I enjoy that a lot. Okay. But Instagram is where I mainly.
So what's your YouTube channel?
All of them are Bomber Bash.
Okay.
Or excuse me, Bomber Bash for YouTube. Okay. The Instagram is bombers_garage.
Okay.
And I'm way more active on there. And I like that. The only thing I don't like about Instagram, it's become TikTok. I wished it would go back to where it wasn't reels and it was just pictures of makers, photographers, and more. Yeah. It's become something I don't care for, but it's still the one I interact the most on. And then I have my Big Cartel site where we sell apparel and,
Great. So,
and stuff like that.
Yeah, so I'll leave links in the description for Instagram, YouTube, website, so you can get the Bombers Garage swag. Is there anything else that you wanted to say before we wrap up?
I was going to say, man, I really appreciate you coming out here, taking the time to drive even further up north than you are to come
I like it up there.
to come and hang out with me.
I like it up here.
And man, I just want to say, I watched the other day. I had some driving to do. Excuse me, I listened to you interviewing Brian, and I miss that guy, but I appreciated listening to y'all talk and you sharing what he does and you kind of getting into seeing the things that your community's doing. I look forward to seeing who else you interview and have on there. And I like, man, Brian is such a good dude, and he much like he has his heart in to what he does. Yeah. And I know that we all want to, I know this helps with marketing and getting out there and then telling the stories, but I know you're like me, you appreciate the stories behind stuff too, and then tying that in with the community. It was great to hear y'all and to see that dude. I haven't seen him since I moved up here. And just him sharing what he's doing, what he's got going on, that you actually participated in it. And, listening to y'all talk and how, just his passion for doing that. Man, that dude's been doing this a long time. This isn't new to him at all.
Not remotely new.
And I appreciate you coming up here. And I know this isn't exactly the genre of what
this is
your
perfect.
people do, but
no, this is perfect. Like, and so, the point of me wanting to start a podcast, and obviously, like everybody has a podcast now. It's easy to do. But it's to connect with people in the community
for sure.
And the goodwerks community to me is far and away the best aspect of my business.
Yes.
Having interactions and building friendships with people that are in the community has been, incredibly rewarding. And I need to make money and I need to pay bills, and I definitely want to make money. Like
for sure.
I want to be like, I want to not have to ever worry about money again. Like, and I want to build the business to that point. However, it's still really important to me that this community and this business is of service to the community too, and where it's not like, not just for the money. Yes, it's a business. Yes, it's for money.
For sure.
But at the same time, I really want to maintain the integrity of the business and maintain the community. And it feels like it's growing. And of course there's like different layers of people and closeness and connectivity. But I think that it's a pretty, it feels tight knit, especially with certain people.
And it's a representation of your values and what you value as far as the community and what y'all want to do.
And that's, you kind of realize as you get older, and as you when you embark on something like a business or a hobby, like if you're a creative, if you're a photographer, an artist, anything like that, where there's a lot of opinion based, you realize that, after taking licks, which you do, that you just have to stick to what you want to do, because no matter what, if you start to kowtow and if you start to do things for other people, you're getting further away from what you want to do, and you're still going to take the abuse for it. So it's like you may as well just stick to what you believe and like your values and really instill that. So it's starting the podcast is a way for me to connect with people that are in the community and kind of like share what they're doing. So like, and I don't have like a specific aim or angle for this. It's just a matter of like, hey, we're buddies, we're friends, we're connected to the community. Let's talk. Like, I want to learn more about you. I want to hear like what you do, like what you're interested in, and like, what, who you are as a person, like that's operating within this community. So it really doesn't have to, like, I'm not working on pushing an agenda. I'm not working on any of that. It's just a way to connect and showcase people in the community, just to show it and like for the sake of it. And as far as Brian goes and HDT goes, I really respect Brian. I really respect how he runs his business. I think he is a guy that's got a lot of integrity. And I know that he has been taken advantage of. I know that he has been, there have been instances where it's been pretty obvious and intentional where they've tried to quash him. And that Brian is still doing his thing, staying true to himself and his community. So having him, on that was really important to me. And two, like doing his events, like I love what he's doing with his events. I've kind of been pushing him toward the team-based stuff because a lot of it is individual, and I think that a lot of people are looking for that team stuff still, but they're a little apprehensive about it because it's something different.
Oh, for sure.
So like that was an important thing to me, is to help like showcase that. So hopefully, we're just going to keep going with the podcast. I got a couple more people that are in the community that I'm going to be talking to. So like if anybody wants to talk on the podcast, like just holler and we'll figure that out. Is there anything else that you wanted to say?
I think that's about it, man. I really appreciate spending this time with you and hanging
Likewise.
out and
it's been too
checking
long.
out the place for sure.
When is the next Caffeine and Cruising?
That will be the last Saturday of this month in Essexville, Michigan, and then I believe it's the 20th. We have an Ugly Truck show, which I think I mentioned that earlier.
Yeah.
That's our only evening event. Everything else is during the daylight hours. So.
All right. Well, thank you for watching or listening, and it's been a little while, and thank you for not minding the little recording mishap. True to form. If you have any questions, send me a DM. I'm going to link all the Bomber stuff below or in the description. If you have any questions, send a DM. If you want to talk to me, send a DM. If you want to talk to Bomber, send nudes and DMs. Full frontal male nudity is preferred for Bomber.
My man.
Or men.
I like it.
Thank you guys for hanging out. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Thank you for bringing me into your shop and letting me chat with you and giving me some of your time.
Thank y'all. Appreciate y'all.
Thank you guys.